right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond, joined alongside me as always, Seth Varnadore and Robert Steeg, as Steeg stuffs his face right now from his dinner. Is it still good? Is it nice and hot?
It's a white chocolate covered Oreo that I just got at the 10-second mark. Was stuffed into my mouth.
Perfect.
Give me a second.
It's the highlight of the last couple of days for USF fans. We'll get, we might as well just kind of jump right into it, right? I mean, there's really no beating around the bush. The South Florida Bulls got absolutely demolished, destroyed. Some would say embarrassed on ESPNU/ESPN News because they got booted from ESPNU because the game was so bad. I think they got booted in the first quarter, if I'm not mistaken, or pretty close to it. And that's a rough way to start your season as they lose 50-21 to the now ranked 21st in the nation BYU Cougars. Let me tell you guys a quick story, and then we'll kind of get into the recap of this BYU game. So Friday night, went to the Melting Pot. I promise there's a point to all this. Friday night went to the Melting Pot because Samantha's birthday was on Saturday. So her and I had a little date night, just me and her. On Saturday morning, woke up around 5:30 to kind of get the stuff ready for her birthday and whatnot. And I started my Saturday off by finding out that my dog had died. And the day just got worse from there. You thought my dog dying would be the worst thing that happened on Saturday. But then USF showed up, and it just made things worse. On the lighter note of this story. Yeah. On the lighter,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Sorry about your dog.
On the lighter part of this part I find a little funny. So my cat died like two and a half years ago, maybe 3 years ago at this point. And we buried him outside. We buried him in our backyard. We've owned the house for 30 years. We're not going anywhere. So I went to start digging the hole for my dog, and ended up just digging up the cat because I forgot where I had buried him. So I had to fill that hole and find a new hole for the dog. So that's how my Saturday started, and it just progressively got worse as the day went on. So once again, USF football ruining Samantha's birthday as the overarching theme of the podcast in the weekend. But yeah,
there is some tagline there, by the way, of just USF FBS openers worse than your dog dying.
I mean,
Jesus.
Need to get the Randy Travis digging up bones playing back in the background here.
It was an adventure to a Saturday, that's for sure. But good Lord. I mean, you got to wait 2.5 hours because the powers that be thought thunderstorms don't happen in the afternoon in Florida in the summer. So that was neat.
Steeg and I talked about this off air. But that delay just put them right into mountain time. They might have been jet lagged if they had to kick off at normal time. But the delay just put them right in their comfort zone.
Right in their comfort zone. Good Lord, man. I don't know where you guys want to start. You know what? Tricky Time saying Saturday was a live tutorial on how to kill a fan base. We will get to that when we preview Howard, because there's a very important question that I think I need to ask the crew here. But so 2.5 hour rain delay, lightning delay, first play of the game, missed assignments, not getting aligned, 75-yard touchdown run by Puka Nacua, his first career rushing touchdown of his collegiate lifetime at BYU. He followed that up shortly with his second career rushing touchdown.
He looked healthy.
Collegiate career.
If there are any questions about the health of Puka Nacua, it took about 3 seconds.
Yeah,
to see that he was fine. I was actually not 100% sure, because before the game, they were going through warm-ups. Guys were running routes full speed. He was jogging through. I'm like, oh, maybe he's feeling it. Maybe he's still a little tight. First play, I was like, oh, he's good.
He's fine.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
And
it was exceptionally hot before the rain too. That would have been helpful. It was so hot. You would about throw up walking to your car from the parking lot. It was rough.
Yeah, it was not a fun experience up until the rain got there. So what does USF do to follow up their giving up a 75-yard touchdown? They opened their 2022 season with brand new offensive coordinator Travis Trickett, brand new quarterback in Gary Bohannon, and what do you run? Inside zone twice, and then a tunnel screen to your wide receiver that gets blown up. So, I mean, you spend 8 months preparing. You don't stream the spring game because you want to keep it all a secret. You tell the broadcast booth that you don't want to give anything away. You don't want to tell people what your identity is. You want to keep that under wraps for a run pass to open up the season. Just that's art. That is art to do. Just incredible stuff from Trickett, from Jeff Scott there to really fire up this fan base after 8 long months.
Yeah, I thought they were really tight offensively to open the game, and that was a good indicator of it. Who knows if they would have gotten the first down with those 2 runs, would they have just kind of ran again, or would they have gone right down script? To me, it seemed they were just they had a script and they were just going to stick with it, kind of no matter what the game situation was. But the game got out of hand very quickly, and they didn't seem to react quick enough. I thought. Well, I don't think they had a drop back pass, like trying to push the ball further downfield to like their 4th drive, and that was a 7-yard throw on 3rd and 10. So I thought they opened a little bit tentatively, and they got really punished for it.
As they should. You literally have nothing to lose against a top 25 team. Are you worried about getting your secret world-beating plays on tape?
No.
At what point do you figure out, okay, we may need to figure something out and do a little something? And what's so frustrating is they actually did. There was one very inventive play that went for 12 yards. It was the from under center jet sweep quick hitter to Jimmy Horn that went for 12 yards. Very next play is the pick 6, so it's kind of forgotten. But show me something. Show me that again. Keep that. I mean, it was effective. It seemed. So I've started to rewatch the game in preparation for the film room on Wednesday that Seth and I will have, and it doesn't make any sense. It seemed like they were having a lot of success running the ball on the outside and not really up the middle, and they never kind of kept to it. I know Gary had a nice run on the outside. Brian Petit had a nice run. I think that was his rushing touchdown later in the game was to the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy Mangum had a couple of nice runs. So, like, I'm not entirely sure what we're trying to do here when you really have nothing to lose.
Yeah, and it was weird. I mean, it's not totally uncommon for, first game, new coordinator kind of ease into it. But, once after the first 2 drives where it's 1 play touchdown, and then you 3-and-out punt, and then they go right down the field and score again, you might want to get a little bit more aggressive. But then that's kind of where you have that the screen. We'll watch it tomorrow, and that it was a total bust outside by the receivers. If they block it, you've probably got Petit one-on-one with the safety, which puts you in pretty good position. But didn't happen, and then you get a pick 6, and then it's just like
it's deja vu.
It's
all
like
over again.
the Mr. Crab, where it's like distorted around. That's you. That's after that interception. That's just Jeff Scott's in the crab swirl.
Yeah, I think the real indication was you get the scoop and score taken off the board because it was legitimately a forward pass, and they got the call correct. It was good of the refs to let the play go on and then go back and correct it, completely get it. But I don't know. I watched that sideline when they were panning as they were walking back to play the 3rd and 11, and man, they looked dejected. Like, oh my God, this was our one shot and we blew it, kind of thing. Very next play is a 13-yard draw play, and then they score, I think, 2 plays later. So it was just a frustrating first quarter, and I hope it's not a harbinger of things to come. But this is 4 straight years of USF just getting blown off the ball in FBS openers, just absolutely annihilated, not even coming close, not even sniffing competition. And I'll be perfectly candid, I don't give a rat's ass about the second half of that game, about the guys still fighting, the guys still competing. BYU had the game locked up in the first quarter. Like what? And their star wide receiver got hurt. What, in the middle of the first quarter? Like what are they really playing for at this point? It's style points, and they still put up 50 on us. So I don't know. I don't really care. I don't really care about they fought to the very end thing. Give the guys a better chance. I think it was glaring that they just completely whiffed on BYU, even thinking about running up tempo. And I think that the misalignments, not getting the calls in, was glaring. And I don't know how you fix that in a week when now you've got on tape that you can't get a line correctly if you run tempo.
Well, to stick up for the coaches, which is not going to be popular, but I went back and looked at BYU's pace. They ranked like 96 and 100 the past 2 years in pace. They've been traditionally pretty slow. Even with Zach Wilson, they were slow. So it hasn't. But on the other side of it, you should have a plan. You should have a plan for tempo, right? And then once you see that early, maybe adjust. Go ahead early and adjust. Now, they probably didn't know after the first series because, they didn't have to run a second play. So it may have taken a couple series to see that they were going tempo, but that's something you got to kind of have a plan for, I would think, coming into the game regardless, because it's something I would imagine you practice. I think they practice no huddle, up tempo, 2-minute drill in practice. If they haven't, that would be a bigger scandal than the final score. But I'm pretty sure they practice it. So it was kind of weird to see them have so much They had a ton of problems with that. And then the jet sweep, that jet motion gave them a ton of issues. And that is a really tough scheme to stop if somebody's good at it. But they had nothing. Yeah.
I mean, I think they're calling it a little bit. I mean, I think they're going to be calling it a little tight, or at least they've maybe put an emphasis on faking an injury.
There's a little humidity. You could cramp up at any time.
Yeah, I mean, it's Florida. I mean, you guys were sitting around for 2.5 hours. Why not?
Yeah, get loose. Yeah,
got a quick cramp. I don't know what to tell you, but goodness gracious, the amount of times that you had 4, 5, 6 guys just kind of looking to the sideline as the ball's getting snapped, trying to figure out where to go. I mean,
I think to me the most disappointing thing is you really didn't get a chance to learn much because the game was over so quickly that you didn't really get to see. You got to see some guys flash and some guys do some things, but a lot of it was stuff we already knew. But Bohannon had some good throws, and there were some issues with drops, and then on the other side he just missed a couple. But that was the game got out of hand so fast. You didn't really get to see kind of what the real identity of this team, what they're really going to be on both sides of the ball, just because it was just it was over quickly.
Yeah, real quick. All the momentum off the field. We'll talk about the news that came out today with the on-campus stadium here. I mean, it is raring and ready to go, and you lay an egg, and just kind of couple that last year's opener where you lay an egg, and then 2 days before, 2 days after, you find out you're getting left behind in the expansion again, and
that was an existential crisis.
I mean, goodness, I guess it literally is deja vu all over again. It's still it's the same stuff. It's the same crap happening over and over again. It's just a different packaging.
Yeah, our friend Trickett time here. Pitt lost to Western Michigan. Now, to be living reality here, BYU is really good. Like, it's not like BYU's terrible. They're a really good team. They're favored over Baylor this week, who, we've all heard about Baylor, won the Pac-12. So they're pretty good. I think they'll end up being a top 15, probably fringe top 10 team, depending on how they do in some of these Power 5 games they have. But they're going to be pretty good. So It's not like you got blown out by a team that's bad. And that's really, I mean, when you look back at all these opening week losses, North Carolina State ended up being pretty good. They even beat mighty Clemson last year. Notre Dame the year before made the playoff. And then that Wisconsin team, I think, made the Big Ten championship game and lost to a pretty good Ohio State team. So they were pretty good that year too. So these all are brutal losses. There's no sugarcoating that. And you must play better. But it's not like you're losing to terrible teams either. It's kind of an unfortunate quirk of the schedule that you open with these teams. It would have been nice to have the first two games flipped. Probably would have helped you get a little momentum, and you'd probably feel a little bit better. But that's not how the schedule works, and you got to play it. And they obviously weren't prepared for some stuff. So,
tell me about it. And Steeg, I'll bring you in here. One quick question, you can decline to answer it if you see fit.
I mean, just real quick, didn't BYU wax UCF in a bowl game 2 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was prior to Saturday, it was their only win in the state of Florida.
And BYU went undefeated against Pac-12 teams last year. So it's not like all the teams in the American are going out and can hang with BYU. Right. You may maybe have two this year that could maybe hang with them, and that's it, in my opinion.
Possibly. Now, Steeg, you died on this hill back in April, back in March. You still dying on this hill that it was a good thing that they didn't stream the spring game just in case their secret top plays got out?
After seeing the reaction of the fan base over the last 2.5 months, doesn't matter. Like, I'm gonna go on a mini rant here.
Please do.
None of like the Twitter spaces and all the shit that's been going on in the last 72 hours and this implosion amongst fans of just this. I mean, yes, be angry that the team, didn't play well against BYU, a top 25 team. Be angry, all that you want. But like at the end of the day, none of that shit matters. None of the shit matters about, the spring game getting streamed or not, and upsetting a handful of out-of-state fans. People don't give a shit about spring games still, and they won't give a shit about spring games for USF football. Like, let's face the facts here.
I don't think it's the.
No. Let me finish. There are. I can count on probably fingers and toes the amount of fans that are hardcore serious about watching spring games and analyzing the details and finding out all the nuances and all the different stuff, which didn't end up mattering anyways because the quarterback that we had leading the spring games didn't play. So you basically had nothing that was similar from the spring game into the game, and you got boat race regardless. So if BYU saw the spring game and watched it, via Heath's stream or whatever it was, it didn't matter because the team is that much better than you. But the problem more than anything is the reaction by everyone to just blow it up. It seems like no matter what, everything just needs to get blown up at this point. And whether or not it needs to happen is to be seen. But we need to take a step into reality at times. Yes, we can be angry about the things that are small that USF can get wrong. But at the end of the day, we can't just keep on fucking harping over the same details over and over and over and over and over again, because you're going to keep on those cycles of negativity over and over and over again. I want USF to be better. I want them to be better at the social media side of things and approaching the fan bases. And they are making those strides into it. And I'm not going on a rant on you for asking the question, Nate, or anything like that. It's the principle of we expect better from the school, but we're not doing better ourselves and putting ourselves in this negative cycle. Like, there was a bunch of people last night in the Twitter spaces that were egging on players' parents to say something negative about Jeff Scott.
Yeah, that's
fuck
nuts.
That.
Yeah.
That's so fucking low. Like, we can't do that shit. That's shit that Miami fans in like the early 2000s did to try to get dirt on, other schools and everything like that. And then meanwhile, right up the road, everyone from Oviedo's fucking listening and getting their ammo and getting their fun and basically talking more and more shit at us. And that gets us more negative. And it's got to stop at some point. Like, I understand this is all frustrating and we want better, but good God, don't let this shit eat away for like more than 24 hours. Like that's unhealthy, man. Like that's bad.
Yeah, I think before you so rudely cut me off, I was gonna say that I think it's more. It's not really even about the spring game. It's kind of indicative. It feels indicative of a little bit of naivete, or just when you come out and say we're not broadcasting the spring game because we don't want to give our opponent any advantage, and then you come out and get waxed like immediately. It just doesn't jibe well. But I do agree that like there's no reason everybody that was in that 5-hour Twitter space last night, if you went to them before the game on Truth Serum and said, "Do you think USF's going to win this game?" 95% of them would have said no. To me, looking at the projection of the season, this was not a game that I had them winning at all, because BYU's a terrible matchup for the defense, because BYU's got probably 5 or 6 NFL players and 2 or 3 of them on the offensive line. That's not a great matchup when you're bringing in a bunch of new defensive linemen. So to me, and I think we're going to get here, and how does this change our perception of the team? I didn't think they would win this game. I was hoping it'd be a little competitive for longer, but sometimes that happens. It just gets downhill on you fast, and there's nothing you can do. That happens. Would you like to see better? Yeah, of course. But for me, I thought they'd go. I still think they can go over the 4.5 win total. That's what I predicted at the beginning. I still think that's on the table. This didn't change that to me. But like the craziness of like firing Jeff Scott, and it's not going to happen.
Right.
Unless they totally crater and Howard comes in and is up 35-0 going into the second quarter. I think then maybe the conversation happens, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. I do think they're going to have the chance to win 4 games, at least 4 games in conference. They have a chance to win 4 games in conference and get to 4. And then after this first month, if they end the season basically 4-3 or something like that, everyone's going to feel a lot different, as this is going to be forgotten about. But
right,
this wasn't one you were, I don't think, ever likely to win.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Seth, I was telling you, like, my prediction, last week was BYU winning 45-27. So, like, combined on both sides, I was 11 points off. I think you were 15 of the score. So, I mean, we had BYU winning this game pretty handedly. I think we'll harp on this forever. We are always about process, not result here. And it was just bad process, even worse result, like the entire night. And I think that's, for me especially, I think Saturday I was probably in a different headspace than I was firing off some tweets. I probably
the margaritas hitting you.
Well, it was the margaritas and like having to bury 2 animals that were already dead. But other than that, it was fine. But like, God, man, you just can't do that. It cannot spiral that quick. And I think there were absolute glimpses of Gary actually being like the correct pick. I think, I don't want to step on Seth's toes or anything like that, but I mean, we talked. Do you want to give your hot take that you said last night? Do you remember it?
Yeah, my hot take that if McClain's the quarterback, I don't know if they score at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my hot take last night.
I think that's a pretty accurate statement. It seemed like he had a decent grasp and control of the offense when they had the ball. I think Jeff Scott said in his press conference on Tuesday that I think they were down 21-0 and had run 9 offensive plays.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
It got out of hand fast.
So what can you really glean from this other than they just weren't prepared? Like, there's no way that you are this prepared and then this happened. Are you just too prepared? Is it like
they got
too prepared?
You'll see tomorrow. Like the first play is like an element of bad alignment first to start the play, and Jeff Scott even said that today. But we talked about it earlier in the week. Bad alignment, and then also just really bad luck to what the play you had called on. you're rotating safeties away from where they're running the ball and bringing a blitz from the other side away from where they're running the ball. So it's almost like they had the perfect play call against what you had called. And that's why Jeff Scott's like, if we could make the tackle for 12 yards, then okay, because they did have a perfect play call, but you just missed that tackle and it just compounds into a touchdown. So it was not a great start in that. So there's a bit of bad luck involved, but also like after that first one, once you realize they're going tempo, you got to make sure you're getting the calls in, or I think they did end up calling a timeout eventually on defense just to kind of slow things down. But you could tell the one touchdown where the guy's wide open, it's just a total coverage bust. One side's running like it looked like they may have been split field coverage, or one side's running like a cover 2 look, and the other side was maybe just run like a cover 4 look.
Yeah,
and the corner on the field stayed in the flat and like more of a cover 2 look, and it was over. And so there was, and the safety wasn't coming over. So yeah, it was tough, but I'm not quite ready to throw in the towel on the season like it feels like some people are. I just think it's the worst part really is that you had a pretty engaged crowd. I thought, even with the delay, I didn't notice, because I mean they were getting ready to kick off. I mean it was pretty close to kickoff, so the stadium was kind of where it was going to be in terms of people filing in. But when the delay happened, and I looked back out afterwards, and I didn't think it was that. I didn't think the crowd, you didn't lose a lot of people with the delay. It didn't seem like to me. After the first quarter, you lost some people, but but to the delay, I thought you had a pretty engaged crowd. You had an engaged team when you came out too. I think the team was fired up and ready to go, but there is that element of when you've struggled in the past and you hit with adversity right away, and then you go 3 and out, and then bang again. It's tough to recover.
The demons start coming back out.
Yeah, it's tough to recover from that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I chalk this up to obviously there's things that need to be fixed, but it's also a little bit of a bad day at the office. Just kind of this stuff happens sometimes. Now it seems to be happening too much, right? But these kind of games do just, you coach long enough, you'll get in one where it's just like, I remember, I'll give you an example. Everyone knows Joe Kinane, right?
Yep.
We played Manatee.
Architect of the Gulf Coast offense for USF folks.
We played Manatee High School. Manatee was number 1 in the state in their classification. We were at Palmetto. We were number 1 in the state in our classification. Manatee would signal the play in with a number board. Well, one of my favorite things to do when I was coaching was steal signals. So my brother was defensive coordinator. So I would just look, I'd see the number, I'd write it down and say, okay, this is what the play is. So the next time they're, all right, 31, I've got it written down. It's this play, right? So by like 2 drives in, we had most of the plays they were running. We had like 60 missed tackles or broken tackles, and they scored like 58 points on us. And it didn't matter that we knew every single play they were going to run. It was just one of those days. So that stuff can happen. And when the unfortunate part is it happens when you have a really engaged crowd and you got a lot of excitement around the program, and it just deflates the balloon. But I think they'll come back out and play pretty well. I think they'll play really well this week, and then hopefully next 2 games you can find something, go into conference play and beat some people.
Seth, we'll talk about this on your show on Wednesday that goes live at 7:00, right? Next
7:00.
So
Varsity Sports Network. Yep.
We talked about maybe Louisville's not as good as they were anticipating, or maybe Syracuse is better.
I think we'll find out this week.
Yeah,
a lot about Louisville.
I think we will as well. So that's going to be a game to watch for USF fans as you join with us and scout ahead for the next couple of weeks. It's going to be interesting to see how that kind of shakes out. But we're kind of getting a little ahead of ourselves. Just one word answer. We'll wrap up this little part, and we'll dig into the OCS stuff that I know Steeg is clamoring to talk about because he loves this stuff. Ultimately, does it change anything about this team regardless of whatever happens. Did Saturday change your perception or anything to what this team can be or is?
No, I don't. No,
No.
not for me. I had them losing and not covering, and they lost and didn't cover. So
I said it last week.
I see Will in the chat. The sad thing is, I told Will at the game I thought the defense was actually better than last year, even with how bad the game was. I'm like, I think they're actually better. So that's maybe more of how bad they were last year, but they did make them work for it at times, which was more than you could say at times last year.
All right.
I think they'll be okay.
Good. Let's jump into the OCS stuff. Steeg, we got some news at the Board of Trustees meeting in St. Pete on Tuesday morning. We have an intent to award a bid, whatever that really means.
That's a fancy way of saying, hey, we're gonna go with these people, but we gotta get our lawyers together and they gotta do their shit.
Are they selling ads on these BOT, streams now? They just keep bringing people back. It's like a radio tease.
It really is. It's someone was joking that they I think the Live Oak mentioned that someone from one of the other competitive firms was at the Board of Trustees meeting today, and then Michael Kelly immediately DM'd him and was like, yeah, this guy's been at every Board of Trustees meeting. He's been on the board. Like, he's a former alum. He's allowed to be at those meetings. But regardless, we got the intent to bid. It looks like, well, not looks like, they will be going with Barton Malo as the design firm. And then the other big news from it was that Populous is going to be the architectural firm. Populous was kind of the fan favorite, probably the best stadium builder that you could possibly get. Mm-hmm. So this is fantastic news. And then Barton Malo is a local company. There was a big initiative by USF Athletics to make sure that we're including, local firms to do a lot of the building and a lot of the work around this on-campus stadium. Based off of the stuff that I was told today as well from a few sources, that's what they're doing. They're going to hit well above that threshold. I think they wanted like 57% or more to be Tampa-based firms or Tampa Bay-based, and they're well above that number right now. So fantastic news. Going to be honest with everyone, especially with the people that are in the impatient seats of the crowd. These things are going to take time. These things are really, really slow. Big projects like this take a long time to get actual progress done. It's rumored right now that it looks like they're going to start building in June of 2024 for the stadium. Hopefully by then there's not going to be any supply chain issues and, they can kind of get the shovels in the ground and get the shit going. But from now until 2024, you won't see a lot. There's going to be a lot of backdoor meetings. There's going to be a lot of discussions and meetings about meetings and getting all the details done because there's a lot going into this stadium and they want to get it right. If they wanted to haphazardly throw a erector set stadium on that plot of land, they could probably finish that by 2023. They're not going to do that. They want to go all out for this. The stuff that I've heard that they're trying to put in, it's fantastic. We'll see renderings eventually, but it's going to be a bit.
Do we think, and I'm going to throw up some pictures here of this stadium while we talk about it. So Populous did the Colorado State Stadium. Mm-hmm. Do we think this is kind of a similar idea? It's like a 36,000 seat capacity stadium. It's got a football operations building built into it.
I would imagine it's going to be similar. Yeah, they'll do something similar. They're probably going to incorporate. I mean, that Colorado State Stadium has a lot of Colorado, or is it Boulder? Not Boulder. Whatever city it is. They've incorporated a lot of local culture into it and taken a lot of care and effort into it. It'll probably be similar for like the Tampa Bay side of things. I want them to put at least a little bit of a roof or overhang, but I'm not going to get picky with it either.
Right. To that point, have you guys seen some of the videos from, I think it was the San Diego State game on Saturday? I mean, California right now is going through a brutal heat wave, and it was like reaching like 110, 115 degrees, and there's literally no shade. None at all. Like people were hiding under the bleachers outside. They were finding any shade possible. You can't do that in the state of Florida. Like you need to have shade. I know the Hard Rock down in Hard Rock Stadium down in Miami, they added shade, and it's really nice. I think that's the way to go if you're gonna do it. But you can't do open. You can't do it in the state of Florida. You will kill people like 100%.
And this is McLean Stadium, which is the Baylor Stadium. And it was also a Populous. It's more recent.
You might get something more similar to this, especially because of the overhang. I mean, you have to look at it from two angles. In Florida, from August to October, it's either really hot or it's really rainy. And that shade and that covering is going to make use one way or another. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you basically chose the two best firms that you possibly could have. So the price difference for a retractable roof is the difference between this thing,
happening and not happening.
Yeah, basically.
Can you somehow get the rays in there and have them help you with the cost there? We'll get a retractable roof. We'll put the rays there.
You get like an Oakland 2.0 stadium.
Yeah.
It'd be perfect.
Yeah. Just have like they have in Arizona where they can pull the grass out. Just have something like that. You can pull the football field off and you have a baseball field underneath.
Simple.
It's easy. Yeah.
There's plenty of room there for that.
I think so.
But yeah, I mean, it's all part of that master plan that got released last week as well. Boy, would have been great if you could have really just strung together, this incredible stuff. But, we could talk about the BYU game and how bad that was, but athletics is putting a lot of dollar, where their mouths are and really footing the bill on a lot of stuff. And you just, at this point, just hope and pray that the dominoes start falling your way, because at this point they're spending too much money for it to not start falling their way.
Yeah, agreed. Let's see what next. You guys, let's just jump into Howard.
Yeah.
You guys feel like doing that? We'll do that. So we discussed BYU and our feelings and on the multitude of feelings, and we will get to the Howard preview here, but I want this overarching question to be the theme of how we maybe approach this. After the hoopla over the last 8 months, after laying an egg versus BYU and another FBS opener where you get just absolutely demolished, who's actually going to care that the Bulls beat Howard on Saturday? Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does it actually move the needle for the fan base? Is it like a 1? Is it a 2-ish?
I think there's a lot of people that aren't going to get back in until they beat somebody bigger. It seems like they'll be like, oh, that's good. That's what they should do. But if they come up and like snipe Louisville, then people will be back. Oh, okay, yeah. I think it'll take something like that for some people to get back in. Some people are just, will enjoy every single game. I think they're going to blow Howard out pretty easily. So maybe that can be exciting. And you get some of those guys. I mean, because you've got a ton of that's the other thing that's so disappointing. You didn't get to see a lot of these guys that you've been thinking about all offseason really get in space and show what they can do. You got this great group of skill guys. You got I think you have a pretty good quarterback. It just weren't able to showcase it very well. So I would imagine they're going to make a point of doing that against Howard. I would try to score 100 points if I could here to just try to, ease some of the craziness. This is a team that's 0-2 playing, and they've only played FCS teams so far. So this is not like it's not like North Dakota State's coming into town or something like that. This should be a team that you can roll. So hopefully they go out, roll them, and have some exciting offense, and we can kind of see what they're going to be about this year, schematically a little bit, because I don't think we really got to see that a ton. But I think a lot of people they're not going to be fully back in until you win a game in conference, or maybe snipe one of these next 2 out of conference games. So that's what it's going to take, I think, for some people to get back in. Even some people in the chat, it looks like. But I think you can heal some wounds if you come out and dominate like a team that's like you think a good team would.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, frankly, I mean, obviously, I didn't watch any of the game last week. I watched a few highlights, saw what I needed to see, and that's all it really is. And I think what you can do at this point against Howard is, you can string together something really, and when I say really good, I mean really good in the grand scheme of things, because you're going from polar opposite, going from what could be the toughest team on your schedule to what will probably be the worst team on your schedule. So this is where you kind of need to really, overreact and over knee jerk to this. I mean, if you have the opportunity to put 70 on Howard, you take it. If you have the opportunity to shut them out and hold them to like under 100 yards total, you take that opportunity. Sure, you're not going to get a lot of people that are going to be overly impressed by it. I can probably guess that most people would be like, oh yeah, good, you've been in FCS school, congratulations, you've done 3 times. Those are your only 3 big wins that you have so far. But at the same time, what that can do is get you that confidence in the team to say, hey, yeah, you got your asses kicked by BYU, but when you start leveling the playing field a little bit more, you're really good. I mean, we talked about it with Coach DePrato saying, hey, like, you guys are the fastest team you're ever going to see, Puka Nacua aside. This is your chance to remind yourself, hey, I'm really fucking fast, Brian.
He didn't think he was healthy
really
when he said that.
Right. I mean, then you probably get a 5-yard touchdown right off the bat. I don't think there was anyone else on that BYU team that could probably actually alignment-wise, it probably would have happened regardless. But you can at least put your team back into the right scheme of things if you really just shove Howard into the locker and let them have it.
Yeah, and I think it would, even though it's an FCS game, to me, them going out and just totally waxing them would show progress. Because you think about the FCS games the last couple of years, Citadel, it's not like they crushed Citadel. It was kind of a struggle. Yeah. And then FAMU was not super clean last year either against FAMU.
It was a reverse Fetty Whopping, if I'm not mistaken, right? It wasn't at 38-17.
Yeah, it wasn't like you went out and hammered them. It was kind of a struggle at times.
They outgained USF too.
Yeah, so if you go out and if you go out and throw up a 50 burger, or is Justin saying a 60 burger, or is Jason's asking for a 70 burger? You go out there and throw up one of those and then play some pretty tough defense, get some turnovers. I think you'll feel a little bit better, and that will be progress, even though it is an FCS team.
Right.
Go out and dominate a team and Howard's not. They're not. I don't think they're a great FCS team either. So this should be one you go out and roll. If you don't, then buttholes will start to pucker a little bit more. So
yeah, I think so. And it's the dreaded trap game. That's really what this game is. It's the Bulls are looking ahead to September 17th at Florida. They're not even thinking about Howard, and that's how you get sniped, right? Isn't that when you're a bad team, you always think about the trap game? Is that how that, or is it the other way around?
I don't think there's any trap games. They're all traps if you don't play hard.
Yeah, so that's 7 o'clock.
Need to have Admiral Akbar come in and give a pregame speech.
Yeah, so the Bulls face the Howard Bison at 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Really, honestly, the only thing I really kind of care to talk about Howard is the USF connections that they have. Their head coach, Larry Scott, is an OG Bull. 25 years ago today, he took the field against Kentucky Wesleyan and beat the brakes off of them 80-3. That is really awesome. He's got a couple of guys who coached at USF, one that played at USF. Troy Douglas is his defensive coordinator, and he was the DB coach during that mid 2000s run where he coached Mike Jenkins. He coached Trey Williams. He coached Louis Cachette, Nate Allen. That's the guys he was coaching. Those were his position guys. Really cool that he'll be back in town. Fern Hargraves coached in the late 2000s, early 10s. He's their special teams coach and defensive line coach. And then a name that we will all love and remember is 2010 Big East Special Teams Player of the Year, Lindsey Lamar, is their wide receivers coach. And he's coming back as well. They've got a lot of Florida kids on the roster for a good reason. They've got a lot of Florida ties. So it's a couple of guys from like the Sebring area. I think a couple from Clearwater. That's pretty cool to have that kind of connection. Can we get Kentucky Wesleyan back on the schedule? I think they're like D3 now.
They're going to open the new stadium with them and beat them by 100.
So we'll see how that goes. Anything kind of the one thing that stood out to me I was kind of like looking through Howard's kind of stats really was, so they've got a wide receiver leads the team in rushing. And he's a legitimate wide receiver. I think he's averaging like 9 yards a carry. And then they've got another receiver who is averaging a little over 26 yards per catch. So they've got some pop plays, but they really kind of struggle against what was it, Alabama State and then Hampton last week.
Big rivalry game.
Yeah, the Hampton-Howard game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the battle for the real HU. And they lost.
Yeah.
Shame.
Tough scenes.
Tough like 3.
Scenes.
What happened?
Yeah.
I should have looked.
31-28.
Actually, Howard scored 22 points in the fourth quarter to make that a game.
They got some momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man. So as we kind of leave the show tonight, we'll do the predictions. I want to ask one more question from you guys. Actually, 2 more questions. What, if anything, can we learn from this team on Saturday that we don't know yet or have yet to see?
I think like a team that's got a chance to do something, win some games in conference, puts this one away early and gets up and just rolls. If they struggle again, I think you really got to be concerned. If it's like last year's FAM game, that would be concerning to me because I don't think this Howard team is that great. And it's also an FCS team. This should be one where you go in, roll, kind of have your way. So I'd like to see them do that, especially on offense. I'd like to see kind of those guys, some explosive plays on offense. They had some against BYU. Xavier Weaver, they moved him around. They moved him around, put him in the slot. He had some big plays. Like, let's see some of those guys that we heard about all offseason get the ball in their hands and let's see what they can do. We've heard about Chaffee Brown. I don't think he didn't have a touch. Xavier Weaver's played well, but JoJo, I think he had like 6 yards receiver. Let's get him some let's get some of these guys some touches and see what they can do with the ball in their hands and score a ton of points. That's what you need to do. If you don't come out and score a ton of points, you got to feel a little nervous about the rest of the year.
Steeg?
I think the biggest thing you could probably learn is you essentially have a new team under your belt here at this point. You have new coordinators. I mean, some of the assistant coaches are the same. You have a lot of new defense players and a lot new offensive players. Are they able to turn the page quickly? You kind of are, you went up against Geraldus Chapman to start, and now you had the ball on the tee. You struck out on 3 straight swings and looked, like you didn't know what you were doing. And that's okay. I said it last week. The season's not going to be defined by a loss by BYU, and the season's not going to be made by a win against BYU. But now you kind of you have the ball on the tee. You got 3 swings at this. Really, you have 4 swings at this. You need to be able to make a big statement out of this game. You got to be able to turn the page. You got to be able to point to it and say, we're good enough. We can steamroll a team. We just got steamrolled by a really good team. That's okay. Power 5 to Group of 5 to FCS. Like it's all okay, and it's all going to come out in the wash at the end of the day.
Okay. Fair enough. Let's get to the predictions. Quick recap. As we head into week 2, Seth and Nathan are 1-0. Steeg is 0-1. A tradition unlike any other.
God, it's like a baby shit in their pants every day.
It really is. It really is. All right. So let's start with Steeg. Let's see if he gets off the schneid. What's your prediction for the game?
I know I just said they had to go big on this, and I'm gonna stand by it. I don't think they're gonna get the shutout that I really hope they would get. I think they'll probably let up like a late scorer or two, maybe whoever gets like 10 points. I'm gonna go with 56 or 59-10. I think I'll feel good about that.
Howard,
I really do think, yeah, Howard wins.
The Bison.
I do think that we have like the USF offense again. BYU, I think it can be really, really good, and I think it can be really, really efficient. I saw some good things out of Gary on the few highlights that I saw, and I think you just had too much speed that I don't think Howard's going to be able to keep up. I am looking more than anything. God, you could get your season total with sacks this game and really go for it from last year. They could get 9 sacks this game. That's what I'm looking forward to at this point.
Okay. Seth?
Let's go 55-13.
55-13 USF. I
Yes,
assume.
that's correct.
I don't want to.
That's correct. No,
okay.
you don't want to assume my scores, but
yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I'm going to go 49-14. USF wins. I just I don't trust that they don't let Howard score a touchdown, and I don't trust that they don't let Howard score 2 touchdowns. So that's kind of where my thought process is on that. Like, until you prove that you can, then I'm not going to believe that you can. Is really what it boils down to.
Which was the logic behind my pick last week.
Exactly. So that, I think that's it. I guess. Wait, no, Steeg, you wanted to add something about some other sports. You want to tag it on right here?
We do cover other sports sometimes. And we'll give credit where credit is due. Sometimes.
Always.
They get lost in the shuffle, unfortunately. No, the fall season started for everyone. We'll start with the good. Volleyball looks quite resurgent. They're 4-2 to start the year. Their 2 losses, which when I say these names, you're going to scoff at them. Ball State and University of South Alabama. Both of those teams are receiving votes in the top 25. So they started the year 1-3, and then went up to the Stony Brook Invitational and swept all 3 games against 3 pretty good teams: Georgetown, Maryland, and the aforementioned Stony Brook. So teams 4-2. They've got a really young squad that looks like they're playing together really well. They go to the UTSA Invitational, where they'll play 3 more games against UT Arlington, UTSA, and then our favorite FCS school, McNeese State University. Ugh. So that'll be fun. Yeah. Women's soccer, not much to talk about there. Lost at Florida 1-0. Beat UTSA. Looks like they're struggling on the firepower department. They only scored, I think, like 4 or 5 goals this year. But speaking of struggling in the firepower department, men's soccer 0-3-1 to start the year. And if you go on the if you go on the NCAA website and you go to the category that says goals for, you will not see the University of South Florida on there because they have yet to score this year in a non-exhibition game. So, Coach Bob, we gotta get some goals here. They've had a brutal start to the year. Every team that they have played in is a very good team. So, non-conference scheduling. They have an easy, probably layup game against Mercer this Friday. So hopefully we will score a goal. And then cross country finished 5th at the UCF Invitational for both the men's and women's. They beat a division school in cross country, Seth. It happened. They did it. They beat Florida Atlantic and Florida International in cross country. They lost to Miami, Florida, Stetson, and UCF. So Overall,
Real
pretty
quick-
mediocre start to the year for athletics.
But before we get out, you guys didn't join me last Friday. What do you guys think about the expanded playoff?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Really lost in the shuffle, I'll be honest.
It did. Yeah. That's the other reason everyone's real excited. You know, you had that news come down Friday. You're coming into the season, and then it all just kind of deflates. But that was pretty big news.
It was.
It definitely changes. Yeah, it changes the landscape quite a lot. If it's done properly, and we see some fair committee play, it'll make for some really good games. If not, I'm really going to enjoy watching the 8-4 Florida team travel to Washington to see how those games play out.
Yeah, there's going to be some cold weather game. The part that stinks is they're going to give those teams options to play in domes if they want.
Cowards.
Like Ohio State, you want to play at home, or would you rather play in Indianapolis so your offense can throw the football? Make them play at home.
Make them play at home.
That's kind of annoying.
It is annoying.
So basically, it's the top 6 conference champions
and 6 at large,
and then 6 at large, and then the top 4 of those conference champions get a first round bye.
Yeah, and they haven't said if the it doesn't seem like it, but I think it would be wise as well to have all the conference champions get ranked sequentially. So even the 2 conference champions that aren't in the top 4, they should still get a home game, in my opinion. But I don't know if that's how it's going to be. That would be nice, because then you could have USF wins the American. If they're still the American, they could they could have a home game, a home playoff game. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
It would. That would be pretty neat. I think it just makes college football more exciting. It gives the little guys an actual fighting chance to play for something. It's why everybody loves March Madness. It's to see the Cinderellas, to see was it St. Peter's knock off Kentucky, right? Like college sports fans live for that sort of stuff, and it's just an added bonus. There will be some consequences that we are just not thinking about of doing this, but on the surface, as we see it right now, it doesn't seem like anything but a net positive for the game, where it really felt like it was going to be the power 2 when it doesn't really matter who's playing and what.
Yeah, I think it slows that down considerably. Because the other part of it, and I talked about it on Friday, is so now let's say the Pac-12 goes under, are they staying at 6? Does that mean now 2 G5 conferences would have automatic bids if it's still top 6 conference champions? So I don't know, because this last contract was 12 years. So if this new deal is going to be 12 years, either expansion totally stops, or it makes it even easier for G5 teams to get in automatically. So I think it's my question to you guys is, do you think this will help the talent spread out a little bit more?
I think the thing
too. There's some that thinks that I've talked to some people that they don't think it'll matter, but I think it may not spread. It may not go from like 5-star guys are coming to USF, but it may be like they're not going to Alabama, they go to Miami, or they go to Florida State, because now Florida State, even if they're not going to win the ACC, has a chance to make the playoff, right?
Right.
I think NIL will have a bigger impact on the spreading out of talent than the college football playoff, and I think we're seeing that. We talked about Tennessee, like they've really done a good job at cashing in on NIL and getting talented players there, and I think that's kind of where we're heading. I don't really think that the expansion really moves the needle that much, but I could be dead wrong.
I think NIL. I think you are right. The NIL will probably be the leader there. But now, if you're a Tennessee, right? Not only do you have the NIL now, but you can also say, hey, we still got to. Even if we don't beat Alabama, or because they play Alabama every year, even if we can't beat Alabama and Georgia, we still have a chance to make the playoff here. We could finish top 10 easily,
right?
And so then now I think it helps them. Maybe instead of guys being like, well, if I want to make the playoff, I've got to go to Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, or Alabama, maybe Oklahoma. I think that'll hopefully spread that out, coupled with, like you said, the NIL. So it could, and I think that would, because everyone's talking about blowouts. There's blowouts in the playoffs now. The way to lessen those blowouts is to spread the talent back out.
I will say though,
like the top 10 players went like set. Somebody said I think it might have been 2005, or it could have been like 2008, maybe even later. The top 10 players in the country went to 7 different schools. Like last year, it was like two or 3 different schools.
Yeah.
And I think we saw.
Go on, Nate.
Yeah, I think we saw it on Saturday. Like the gulf between the top 2 teams in the country and the 11th place team. I know I think I saw that they're already out of the top 25, but I mean the gulf is massive. I mean 49-3, and without really even breaking a sweat for Georgia, like that's.
No.
And they lost a lot of talent, and they still just ran right through Oregon.
They had 15 draft picks or something like that.
So I think that'll help.
That could be part of it too, Justin. That's not a bad point. That would also, you'd start, I think, 10 days after the championship game. So you'd start like the week after Army Navy is when you start playing games. So you wouldn't have that downtime.
Yeah. I mean, that
Right.
works with college basketball, right? I mean, you play, you find out where you're going on Sunday and you're playing Thursday. So you don't really have a month to really get into the minute details of every single thing. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And I think it makes you. I know we're trying to get out, but I think that news just makes the USF job that much more attractive for whatever's going on in the future, whether it be to recruits. I guess it makes USF more attractive, I think, to recruits, to potential coaches in the future, all that kind of stuff. Just because market now, ability to make the playoff, NIL, it seems like that's getting turned around pretty well. So. And new stadium, new facilities, that kind of stuff, all kind of coming together. So,
confluence of events.
Yes, in a positive direction this time.
Yeah,
an egg on the face of those who went to new conferences and now have to battle with bigger opponents. All we got to do is somehow find a way to win the conference, and I think we'll probably find our way there.
Seems easy enough, right?
Just win just win like 8 games.
Hey, just win the conference, all right?
Yeah, go 0-4 out of conference and go undefeated in the conference. I mean, it's not that hard.
There you go.
Collect the paychecks the first 4 weeks, and then
playoff bound.
Boat race Charlotte in first game. That's all I got to do.
There you go.
Easy peasy. All right, let's get out of here. Appreciate you guys jumping on. Thank you for tuning in, following along on the feed, listening to us. Make sure you download, subscribe, read our stuff, dailystampede.com. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Shout out to Anthony Vita for always having these uploaded and editing this stuff. God bless him. We'll be out there Sunday night as the Bulls take on Howard at 7:00 on ESPN Plus. For Seth, Steeg, I am Nathan Bond. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast.
Film room tomorrow.
Film room tomorrow. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.
Bulls.